Hey guys, good evening. I hope I'm pretty much audible as well as visible. So I hope people are doing well and people have started joining in. So as per the today's agenda, so we'll be finally concluding our NumPy. So we have been talking about NumPy functions for quite a lot of time now. We have seen a lot of different functionalities, different methods available under NumPy superclass. So it's basically an high-level API for mathematical computations, which is happening through your arrays. So arrays are another data type, right? So in this lecture, so we'll be talking about our all the left out functions, all the functions which we've covered so far in NumPy, and we're gonna draw a basic conclusion on NumPy, right? So I'm gonna give you the set of functionalities available under NumPy and under a single slider, and then we're gonna talk about each of these one by one. So we're gonna do a quick refresher, and then we're gonna conclude on NumPy today. Okay, so as you remember, we have been talking about a lot of available functionalities, like be it the manipulative functions, be it arithmetic operations, be it statistical function, even on the strings part. So a lot of different categories of functions available, right? So I'm just going to give you a kind of a diagram kind of a thing for those functions, and then when to use what, right? So because there are a lot of functions and you don't even know like when to use what, right? So you might get confused, like I have this many list of functions, so when I should be using what. So there's again kind of a connecting dots towards your functionality. So that's what we're going to do today, and then I'm going to just give a recap for all of the available functions, right? So hello Shubham, thank you so much for joining in. So I hope you're doing well. So and at any point of time, guys, if anybody has any questions, do let me know in the chat. So we're gonna be discussing about those. So as things come, right? Thank you. Hello Rishang, thank you for joining in. So yeah, so as I was saying, please do put up your questions in the chat. So from anywhere, like be it from today's lecture, from anywhere else. So like be Python, data science. So do feel free to put up your questions, right? So in the chat. So we're gonna talk about them as it comes, right? So I'm monitoring my chat, and yeah, if I miss out any chat, so I'll definitely come back to you. So again, that's the agenda. That's the whole boundary towards your work, right? So, but again, as always, let's start with the basic introduction. As you know, my name is Arpit Jain. I'm a senior data scientist myself. I've been into industry for almost 9 years now, and along with that, I'm also a motivational speaker. So I've seen different industries. I've been into multiple sectors, and along with that, I do talk to students. I do talk to the candidates regarding their jobs and regarding their career. So any issues, any things which you feel like you have a doubt inside your career, so do feel free to put up your chats discussion or the issues in the chat. So we'll take up that, and then I'll try to help you out accordingly. Subjects. So as per our playlist, so we have been talking about 3 different subjects so far: Python, SQL, data science. Python we started around 3 months back, so that's what we are discussing today also. So NumPy is again one of the high-level APIs where we're discussing about the arrays functionalities. We're gonna be covering that today. SQL also we started about a month and a half back, so we are doing we have covered the concepts. Now we are doing the problem solving live on HackerRank, LeetCode. So we started with HackerRank. So this weekend also we'll be doing some HackerRank, and also I'll try to solve something on LeetCode too. So live problem solving happening on SQL. And likewise, the plan is for Python also. So for the data science, as you know, we have clubbed with Python. So data science, we're gonna start with natural language processing from tomorrow onwards. And post that, so we're going to be doing some of the interview questions on Python from HackerRank or LeetCode. So we're going to be solving those as well, right? We have another question. Shubham says, is it possible to use NumPy documentation during interviews? Okay, so I believe no, because see, whenever you go for the interviews, right? So there are 2 kinds of interviews. First is in person. So in person, definitely you cannot use any documentation. That's not possible because you'll be sitting face to face, right? So and then if it's not in person, it's more of a kind of a video interview. Still, in that case, it's not advisable to open any documentation for the interview purpose, right? So that's not advisable. So it's just like more for your reference, but before the interview, so not at the time of interview, right? So that's not advisable. So do not do that. So to answer your question, if it is possible, I mean possible, for possibility, there are a lot of possibilities, right? So you can do anything you want. But if you ask me whether it is advisable, so I would say no. So don't do that. So have a fair idea about your work, have a fair idea about the functionalities beforehand, before going for the interview, but do not open any references at the time of interview. That's not advisable. right? So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, but again, guys, coming back, so you have this code right in front of your screen, which is Python 10. So with this Python 10, you can have a free ReLevel sample test paper, right? So you know that. So now, please bear with me. This is a mandatory promotion, so I have to run through this. So many times candidates do miss out on the great opportunities due to multiple reasons. It could be like they don't have a better degree, or could be, as like poor networking issues, right? And also the resumes with which they are applying, it is not really standing out. So at least there are 100 other applicants for the same job, right? So your resume is not standing out. Could be an issue with your resume, maybe some keywords missing out, or there's something which is totally beyond your control, right? Also could be beyond that. And also you're applying to n number of jobs, 50, 60, and even 100 jobs. Still, you're not getting even a single interview call, right? So very practical problem, but yeah, people do face these problems. Very, very genuine and very normal issues, right? So do not worry about that if you're not getting a call. So it's very normal. So to cater these issues only, the ReLevel has introduced India's first test hiring platform, which is called as Unacademy has launched India's first hiring platform, which is ReLevel. So the ReLevel has been introduced for that, right? So, and it is helping you to get your dream job. So here, your job is purely dependent on your skills and talents. It's not at all dependent on any sort of degree or any networking. So if you're skilled enough, if you're knowledgeable enough, so you will be getting your job. So how exactly it works here? It's more of a assessment platform. So where you're supposed to select the area of your interest. So basically the field where you want to apply for your jobs, and then post the selection, you will be asked to go for an assessment. So that assessment will be of multiple rounds, and the only expectation here from you would be to get the best score out of this assessment, right? And the base of that score only, the companies will start reaching out to you. So you'll be making your candidate profile on the ReLevel platform, and once that's done, so the companies will start reaching out to you. It's like more of a once given the test, sit back and relax. The companies will reach out to you. It's like that, right? So again, there are certain other benefits also involved if you participate in this ReLevel testing platform, and I'll brief you with some of those. So at least 50 plus companies, they are hiring directly from the ReLevel platform, which includes the top startups and even the unicorns, including your ENY, Upgrad, Cred, Razorpay, Urban Company, and many more. Also, there are at least 1,000 plus open job positions across 3 different portfolios right now: business development, front end, and the back end development. Right, and the good thing is this is completely online, so you're not supposed to be physically present anywhere to attempt your test. So you can take this from the comfort of your home, and the best part is this is completely free, right? So you're not paying even a single penny to attempt this test, so you can take this for completely free. But the only expectation is, since I've told you that there could be multiple rounds here, so you're expected to finish your entire test in a single day, and that day could be of your choice. Right, and also once you have given the test, the ReLevel score will be revealed in a week's time. Okay, yeah, so there is a qualifying score. So you are expected to get at least 70% of marks to create your ReLevel profile. So and the total is of 1,000 marks, the assessment of. So the expected score from you would be to score at least 700 out of 1,000 to get your ReLevel profile done. And in case you are not able to score that qualifying marks, or if you feel that your score is not decent enough, you can always reattempt the test, but that reattempt can happen only after 30 days of your first attempt. So the time gap has to be 30 days. Okay. Along with that, also there are certain goodies involved. So if you're one of the top scorers in a particular category in a month, you'll be awarded with some exciting goodies like MacBook, iPhone, and many more, right? So definitely. So it's more like cherry on the cake for you, right? So, and then definitely with this ReLevel, you're in a unique position, guys, to invite interest from the companies instead of you hunting for your own opportunities. So it's basically like once you have given the test, just sit back and relax and wait for your D-Day and give your best. And if you have got the really good score, the companies will start reaching out to you based on your scores, right? Registration on this platform is also quite easy, guys. The link is there in the YouTube description. Please go through that link. So once you have selected the option, so the very first thing it will ask you to choose the test of your choice, right? So here there are 3 options: business development, front end, and the back end development. So, and then again, there are multiple sub roles available within these portfolios, like the sales associate, customer engagement associate, and the business development. In front end, you have the front end engineer, Angular developer, web developer, And also in the backend, you have software engineer, backend engineer, data engineer. So depending on your role or the area of interest which you want to be part of, you can choose the test of your choice. The very next thing, it will ask you to choose the date of your choice, right? So the slots are limited, so I would suggest you to book it fast. So it's a beta platform. So you can choose the test date. So depending on the test date, so you can be available, give your best on the test date. The very last thing, it will ask you to fill up your admit card details, the basic demographics like full name, email ID, birth year, state, and along with your gender, right? And the last, you have an option to enter the promo code, right? So you have an option to use the promo code, which is Python 10. So if you use the code Python 10 here, you're gonna get, or you're gonna unlock a bonus sample ReLevel test for you, right? So that's something which is very important, guys. So you can always take that. So that's gonna unlock a sample test paper for you. So that's gonna be it's more of a replica of your questions which you're gonna expect from the ReLevel assessments, right? So very important feature. Do not forget to use the code Python 10 once you create your profile. Once you have done that, you can see your home screen, and on this home screen you should be able to see the practice tab. And in this practice tab, you have the sample paper here, so you can download this sample paper and definitely practice the questions for your assessment. So it's going to be the replica of similar questions which you have. Cool. So that's how it is. That's how it works. So with this, guys, I would request you to definitely register for the ReLevel today. So since there is no cost involved, so I won't see a problem in registering anyway. So you're anyway not paying even a single penny for this. So do register for the platform today itself, guys. So it's really a good opportunity. So you can always look forward to it, and at least you can try it for once. If you feel that you're not getting benefited by it, so you can always take the decision elsewise later. But at least you can try it for once, right? So there's no harm in that. So I would request you to at least register on the platform today, guys. And along with that, we have an official Telegram channel also. The link is again there in the YouTube description. So do not forget to join this channel. It's more of a one-point stop for you for all of your upcoming schedules on the CodeBeyond channel. So all the upcoming classes, schedules will be popped up here in this channel. So with this, guys, I would recommend you to please do like, share, subscribe the video. If you feel that you're getting benefited, at least press the like button on the videos. So with this, we are in the content slide, guys. So we are talking about the Numpy conclusion. So we'll be talking about all the functionalities we have learned so far in Numpy. I'm going to give you a run through on all the functions, a quick run through. Any questions, do stop me in between. So I'll try to be a bit fast today because we have already covered these functions, but I want to give you a gist, more of a formulative study, a formulative work of all the available functions. So we're going to run through all the functions. But again, if you have any questions anywhere, do stop me in between, and then we're going to talk about that. Okay, so yeah, okay, Shubham ka question है DSML है level pre-level पे. हाँ यार, so they have recently introduced business analytics and data science in on ReLevel. So I have not used it myself, but yes, I have got to know that they have introduced data science and business analytics in on ReLevel. And also, in fact, as per our playlist also, so I'll be covering few of the ReLevel sample questions on data science, Python, SQL. So we'll be doing that also. So the next week onwards, so we have a plan to do at least once or twice a week solving the live problems on ReLevel platform from data science part. So maybe on stats, or maybe on Python, or maybe on SQL. So we're going to do that from next week onwards. So I'll be preparing the content accordingly. So we'll be doing the live problem solving on the sample ReLevel question papers. So yes, to answer your question, yes, they have introduced it now. Cool. So with this, we are into arrays, right? So basically, Numpy क्या है यार? Numpy is working on arrays. आपको पता है arrays क्या है? Arrays is more again one of the one of the other data types available in Python, which is more of a homogeneous data type, right? So in this arrays, you can have arrays can hold a single data type, while list can have multiple data types. It's more of a heterogeneous list, right? So you can have a string or a character or a number or a float, or I mean any data type, or any even a function within a list, right? So it's a heterogeneous data type, while arrays is more of a homogeneous data type, in which it can hold only a single data type, right? So it can either be numbers, or it can also store strings, right? So yeah, so there could be arrays of strings also, right? So broadly, there are 7 different classes of functions available, right? Under your NumPy arrays computation, plus certain other methods. So we'll be talking about them. But broadly, there are 7 classes of functions available in arrays. Okay, so we were talking about a lot of functions, right? So I'm just gonna give you a gist of all those, and then we're gonna see them one by one. Hello, Sandeep, for joining in. Thank you so much. So the first class of function is more of array attributes, right? So array attributes means that you have an array, right? So you're just like talking about my like well and how of my arrays, right? So what's my shape, what's my maybe dimensions. If you want to create a new array with a range, or you want to reshape it, so all the array attributes. So the attributes of my arrays is the first class of my function. So shape, reshape, arrange, LineSpace, LockSpace, remember, right? So we were talking about all of these functionalities. It's more of a well and how of my arrays, right? So that's coming under my first class, which is my array attribute. So we're gonna see, we'll be seeing them at first. The next is my arrays manipulation. So in the arrays manipulation, we are talking about how we're gonna work around on arrays, right? So it could be like adding up of arrays, you're gonna stacking up, splitting of arrays, flattening of arrays, appending to different arrays. So you're working with multiple arrays, or you're kind of doing some crunching of my arrays. So that's more of array manipulation, right? So you're working on arrays. So you have certain other functions available on this, which is like flatten, stack, split, append, right? So again, in stack or split also we have horizontal stack, vertical stack, and similarly on split, horizontal split, vertical split. So we're going to be talking about those also, right? So that's coming under my manipulation, second class of my arrays function. The third is we have strings also, you remember? So we have array strings. So in array strings we were discussing about yesterday. Yeah, absolutely, Shubham. Insert, concat, stack, vstack, all coming under my manipulation. For the strings we were talking about yesterday, so we have add, multiply, lower, upper, title, capitalize. So a lot of string functionality, replace, right? So all of these functions are available under my strings. And how you're going to call strings functionalities? It's a superclass char, right? So yes, exactly. So that's coming under my strings functionalities. Then we discuss about the roundings. So rounding functionalities of my array. So we have 3 major functions available here. Around, just like using the decimal places. And then we have ceiling and floor. So ceil and floor. So ceiling is basically the, you're talking about the nearest integer higher, greater than my current decimal value. Floor is like the nearest integer lower than my current value. So it's more of ceiling and the flooring rounding functions available here. Then we have arithmetic functions. So we have add, subtract, reciprocal, mod. So it's coming about my arithmetic functions here. So more talking about my numbers. So like adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, reciprocal, mod, power. So all of these functions are coming under my maths, coming on my arithmetic functions of my arrays, right? So, and then we have statistical functions also available, like min, max. So in min, max directly available nahi hai isme. We call it as a min or a max. So that's how we call the functions here, right? So and then we have standard deviations, variance, and then we have mean, median. So all of these statistical functions. So I'm not writing everything here. Yeah, I mean definitely Shubham, I'm reading your text. Yes, absolutely. So exponential, is digit, alpha, log, all of these functions are available. So I'm not writing all of those functions. I'm just trying to tell you the different classes of functions available. So we're going to be talking about like each of these different classes one by one. So I'll just again give you a quick recap of my functions available in NumPy. But broadly, there are 7 classes as I said. So attribute, manipulation, strings, rounding, arithmetic, stats, and the last is my copy, right? So copy mein kya hai? I was talking about the no copy, shallow copy, deep copy, right? So very important concept. So many of the times we don't actually need the same variable to be copied. So because if you create a copy, it's going to use the memory, right? So instead of replicating the exact data into a different variable, we can just use it as a pointer in some of the odd cases. So that is basically through ID, right? So we are not replicating the data. Instead, we are using it as a pointer. We are saying that, okay, B is also A, but B is not the replica, B is not the exact copy of my data set, but it's a pointer of my A. So basically, if I call B, it's internally, it's like a shortcut of my A, right? So it's like more of that. So likewise, we have an copy functions also, like ID, view. So ID is for no copy, view is for shallow copy, and copy is for deep copy, right? So you're going to actually copy the data. With this, these are my broadly 7 classes of functions available under my arrays. So not much. So, but again, if you can just think about this, the usages of this. So depending on your usage, you can use it whenever you want, right? So wherever and whenever you want. With this, we have certain other methods also available. So we know how to index and slice our arrays, right? So indexing, I told you about ellipsis, right? So ellipsis we again have 3 dots. So basically that's coming nothing but my all. So 3 dots means all. And then we also can slice through ranges. And the interesting indexing here, the slicing of my data in arrays through multi-dimension indexes, right? So this is something which is very interesting. We discuss about my multi-dimension indexing, right? So we can actually pinpoint each and every index of my array element. So if we have n dimension arrays, and from this n dimension, I can actually find out, okay, I need the first element, first row, the element from the first row and the first column, or maybe the element from the third row and the second column. So I can specify each and every index of my every element. So that is purely possible through multi-dimension indexing, and I'll be again giving you a brief on my methods of indexing. Very interesting. So we discussed about that already, but very interesting methods available. So second is broadcasting. So array actually have a very beautiful feature of broadcasting. So we have been discussing about broadcasting before also, but it's more like if I have 2 different dimensions of my arrays available, right? And we're going to do some manipulation or maybe some arithmetic operations on top of that. Maybe I'm going to add 2 different dimension data. Suppose my first array is of say 3 dimensions and the second is for say 1 dimension. So in that case, the lower dimension array will get broadcasted into my higher dimension. So for each of my available indexes, it's gonna get added, or whatever the arithmetic operation I'm gonna give to. So the lower dimension will get broadcasted onto my higher dimension array. So we have a very beautiful feature of broadcasting available in arrays. The last method is the conditional method. So it's very interesting where, right? So there are certain other methods, but again, I'm not listing everything. So but one of the very interesting method available is conditional method, which is where. So we're gonna call this np.where. So under NumPy we have a method called as where. So where is more of I would say a conditional method where we can pass a condition, and if that condition is true, we can take an action, and based on that we can find out my output, right? And we can take an action on that my conditional output also. So it's more of a replacement of if I can say in other words in NumPy. So conditional method also available, which is where. Very interesting, very useful functionality, I would say, available under my NumPy. So this is my overall, I would say, broad classes available under my arrays, right? So very interesting, it's more of a layout of my functions and the methods available under my NumPys, right? So any questions here, guys? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run through each of these classes one by one. So I'm not going to spend much time in all of these functions, but again, it's more of a conclusion for us today. So I'm going to just run through all of these functionalities and the methods one by one, right? And definitely if anybody has any questions, so we can take them one by one. So Shubham says, yeah, so broadcasting means like upsampling. Not really. So upsampling is different thing here. Upsampling where you are increasing the number of your elements, right? So if you're not increasing the number of elements, so broadcasting here means like, suppose as I said, so I have say 2 arrays. So in that 2 arrays, the dimensions are different. So maybe first array is of say 3-dimension array, right? So maybe 3 cross 3, right? So 3 rows and 3 columns. Like talk about arrays and columns, rows and columns. And likewise, I have another array which is of 1 row and say 3 columns, right? So in this case, the number of rows are not matching, right? So 2 arrays are of different dimensions. So I cannot just blindly do a manipulation or do an arithmetic operation on top of these 2 arrays, right? So in this case, yes. So the smaller array, which is like 1 cross 3, will get broadcasted into my 3 cross 3. So that means that for each of the rows of my 3 cross 3, the 1 cross 3 array will get added on. So for example, I'll show you the example also, like how exactly it works. It's more of like the smaller array is getting broadcasted to each row of my higher dimension array. Yes, it's kind of matching the shape of my two arrays, but we are not matching up, to be honest. It's like more of a view for me. It's more of a, we're not changing the dimension of my array, but it's kind of, I would say, how can I say that? It's like more of sending the information on the higher dimension array. So I'll give it to you, I'll show you an example that'll make it more clear. But we are internally not changing the dimension of my arrays. We are just making sure that the smaller array is getting, added up or multiplied or divided, whatever the operation we're doing, based on the higher dimension array, right? Yeah, Tanushri, yes, also used to filter, definitely yes. So because as I said, it's more of a conditional method for me, right? So where is, again, definitely if I have a condition, if that is being fulfilled, so that's more of a filtration criteria for me, right? So if that is fulfilled, then definitely that is something which is which is my point of interest, or which is not my point of interest. Either way I can use it, right? So yeah, it's more of a conditional stated for me. Again, more of a replacement of if for me in NumPy. So that's how it works. Cool. So with this, let's jump to our code. So let me switch my screen to codes. I hope my screen is visible. Right. So I won't be going much deep in all of these. So we have already seen this. Yes. So I'll be talking about my functions one by one, right? So we have already seen the dimensions and all that, and we know what is my column major, what is my row major. I hope everybody has pretty much comfortable with that. If anybody has any questions, do let me know, right? So it's pretty simple, basic things, right? So array attributes. Now I have array in place, right? So I have created my array. So I'm not saying that I want to create an array. I have an array. So now on this array, what are my different attributes? So how can I check that? What are my dimensions of my arrays? What are my shape? Can I change the shape of my arrays? What is my item size? Can I create an array with certain set of numbers from iters, or can I arrange it from some certain set of numbers? Right. So a lot of these attributes are available under my array. So I'll go on these functionalities one by one. So shape. So basic shape क्या है? So shape basically क्या है? आप अगर आपके पास अगर matrix होता है, या फिर if you have a data frame, like talking from of a data frame, it will make it more easy for you, right? Or an Excel sheet, right? Excel sheet में क्या होता है? आपके पास there are certain rows and certain columns, right? So आप क्या बोलते हैं? What is the shape of my data set? So I have say 100 rows and 20 columns. आप ऐसा बोलते हो, right? So this is what your Excel sheet looks like. This is what your spreadsheet looks like. Likewise, in arrays also, it's more of a dimensions for me, right? So how many dimensions are available for me? So that is my shape of my data. So maybe a 2-dimension data or a 3-dimension data, right? And then in that case, what are my sub elements? So maybe अगर simple आप उसको plot, जब आप उसको print भी करके देखोगे, it looks like a rows and columns, like a structure, right? So number of rows and number of columns, that's what my shape is. And again, it's working similarly to my data frames. So I have 2 elements here. In a tuple format, my number of rows and number of columns technically. So I'll show it to you how it works basically. So now, for example, I have created this new array here. So I have, so this is what I'm printing here. So don't look at the shape for now. Just look at the array here. My bad. So NumPy is not loaded. Just a minute. Right. So now here you can see this. I have my array here. So array, this is my 2-dimensional array. So and in this, the first dimension has 3 sub elements, 1, 2, 3, and the second dimension has again 3 sub elements, 4, 5, and 6. So what is my shape here? So technically I have 2 broader elements. So or I can say that I have 2 rows, right? Because you can see this. This is my first row and this is my second row, right? Just to understand it from this perspective. And then I have 3 columns also. You can see this. I have 1, 4 as my first column, 2, 5 as my second column, and 3, 6 as my second column. So, but again, in arrays, we don't look at this like rows and columns. It's more of like my outer dimension is 2. So it's like 2 broader, 2 elements, and each of these 2 elements has 3 sub elements in it. So that's how we look at in arrays, right? So, but again, just for an ease, you can also look at it in form of rows and columns also. So in this case, my shape is 2 cross 3 because technically I have 2 rows and 3 columns, or 2 elements in which and each of these 2 elements has 3 sub elements in it. So that's what 2 cross 3 is giving me the shape as, right? So that's what my shape is giving me. That's what my shape of array looks like, right? I can also change the shape. So I can also always change the shape of my array. So now when I'm saying that, so initially I have this 2 cross 3. Now I'm saying that make it in the shape of 1 cross 6. So I'm saying that this A dot shape is not 2.2 cross 6. I'm specifying here, make it 1 cross 6. So basically, now I want it to have one element, a one dimension array with 6 sub elements. So I'm going to flatten out my array. So if I'm going to do that, you can see this now. So I have only one sub element here, and in this one element, I have 6 sub element, right? So, or maybe one row with 6 columns, or in other words, right? So that's how we're going to reshape also. So for this reshape, we have again a very dedicated function. So we're not supposed to, we can do it like this also, but also we have a function called as reshape. So you can directly reshape it, do the similar thing. So you have flattened out my information here, right? So similar thing, no major issues here. Ndim basically क्या है, number of dimensions. So number of dimensions क्या है मेरा, ये we have to understand this. So now for example in this case, so for example here, now look at this. For example this array. Can somebody tell me what is my number of dimension here? So the number of dimension is more of my outer elements, or it's like, or basically अगर आप simple word में समझो तो number of rows, ठीक है? But number of rows में confusion हो सकता है because उसमें आपको brackets आप नहीं देख पाओगे. So it's more of like number of elements available within my array. Sub elements की मैं बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, number of my outer elements. और कैसे count कर सकते हो? It's basically, you can also count by number of square brackets. ठीक है? नहीं, ये आपका 2-dimensional array. It's a 2-dimensional array. And then likewise here you can see this. If I'm talking about my specifically on my ndim of my array, so you can see this. It's more of a single brackets here, right? So now I'm talking about just my simple flattened 1D data. So in this case, my dimension is 1. But if I'm talking about my n dimensions, I've been talking about my 2D array or a 3D array or a 4D array. Depending on my dimensions, I can have the number of dimensions available in my data sets. Cool. Bhutesh ji, namaste. Thank you for joining in. Cool. Great, Shubham. Thank you so much. Yeah, coming back again. Okay, now look at this. I have actually printed it for you. So now look at this. So I have the dimensions of my B and A available here. So now you can see this. So my A is np.arrange12. So basically this is my arrange function. So it's a 1D array. So I'm just creating a list of my 12 elements starting from 0. It's a 1D array for me. So if you print the A ka ndim, so you have 1 here. So it's like my dimension of my array is 1. It's my 1 dimension data. But in this case, can you see this? I'm again reshaping it, the same thing, to 2 cross 2 cross 3. So basically I'm saying that in this case I have 3 different dimensions here. So first dimension is having 2 elements. Each of these 2 elements will have 2 sub elements, and each of these 2 sub elements will also have 3 more sub elements in it, right? So that's how we call this as. So this is more of a 3-dimension data. So I'm converting a 1D array to a 3D array, right? So you can see this. So basically इसको आप कैसे देखते हो, like from your naked eye, you can if you want to find out also, basically आपको दिखता होगा यहाँ पे आपको 3 brackets दिख रहे हैं end में, starting में 3 brackets, it's more of a 3-dimension for me, right? So again, very simple logic to find out what is the dimension, but again it's more of a way of viewing it. But again आपको यहाँ से भी दिख रहा है, you're making it 3 different dimensions here. It's more of a single dimension here, right? So like how exactly you're trying to make it. So it's more of a 3-dimension for me. So is again another attribute of my, ये array आपने इसको बनाया नहीं, ये array already existing है, इस array के आप attributes को देख रहे हो. So how does it array look like, right? इसके accordingly आप इसमें functionalities को add कर सकते हो. Cool. Item size कुछ नहीं यार. Item size is again basically you're creating your memory location. So basically it returns the number of bytes it uses in your memory for your storage. So generally int 8 जो होता है, अगर data type अगर int 8 है तो वो 1 byte लेता है. Likewise float आपका generally 4 bytes लेता है. So this item size it becomes very important whenever you go for productionization of your codes, right? So you're not expected to have a very big memory size so that it goes out of memory or error or like heap size error, something like that, right? So it returns such error in your productions, right? So then in that case, item size becomes very important. So during the course of your code, the array should not increase certain threshold of your item size. So that's what we create this as in the loop. Then it is useful. So item size is again more of the memory it takes in your evaluation purpose. So that's what item size gives you. Right, so empty zeros and ones. So these three are the identical functions. So empty zeros and ones, they create either empty arrays or zeros array or ones array. So basically it is giving you it is creating an array with the shape we want. So it takes certain arguments here. So I have 3 different arguments. So shape, dtype, and order. So shape basically my desired shape of my array, and then the dtype, what dtype I want this created array to be of, and the order. So I have 3 different orders. You already know this: C, F, and K. So C is my row major, F is my Fortran type or a column major, K is any random, right? So this 3. So here empty means it's gonna create. So for example, if I'm giving 3 cross 2, so basically I'm creating a 2-dimensional array with 3 rows and 2 columns. So I want to have a 2-dimensional array with 3 cross 2 dimensions, shape basically, and I want it form of an int. So, and it is creating an empty. So do not look at these values 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. So whenever you do this, it will create a garbage value for you. So technically this is an empty array for you. So it's not taking any memory location, any memory space. It's more of an empty array for you. Likewise, I can create the similar arrays of zeros. So I can have 2 cross 2 here, and I can give zeros. So all the array elements will be zeros here, and similarly 1. So I can also create np.ones where I'm giving this a shape 2 cross 2, and I'm specifying that I want to have the 1. So it will create the array of all the elements 1. So zeros, ones, and empty are my identical elements, identical functions to create the replica set of my arrays. Cool? Okay? As array भी बहुत interesting function है यार. So as array क्या करता है? You have another sequence of Python, and you want to convert that sequence into array. So likewise, you have a function called as list, right? So you can convert an element to list, to string, or to any other data type. So likewise, you can also convert your any other sequence to arrays. So for that, you have a function called as array. So if you're going to call as array on top of your any other Python sequence, you're going to convert that sequence into arrays. Cool. So that's how technically it works. So for example, here I have x as list 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to call np.asArray on top of my x, and if I'm going to print a, you can see this is basically 1, 2, 3 array format. So you can see this, and how we're going to identify this as an array. It's like more of yeah, so like the commas are missing out, right? So it's more of an array elements, right? So I mean, if you see the type of my a, you'll see that it's more of an array. Right, absolutely, Shubham, yes. So np.array list object or any other sequence also, it's fine. I mean, if the formatting is good, so you can use other sequences also, even the series is fine. Yeah, np.array भी आप use कर सकते हो, बिल्कुल correct है. np.array भी आप use कर सकते हो. Array, and in fact, np.array से आप generally create करते हो array. So another way, yes, absolutely right. So np.array is also good. But as array क्या हो, is more of a conversion, right? So if generally आप जैसे string और list में भी करते हो ना, as list, to list, conversion जब आप करते हो. So it's like more of the conversion का function. So like you have another sequence which you want to convert into. So as array भी use कर सकते हो, array भी use कर सकते हो. That is also fine. है ना? Again, technically इसमें multi dimension भी pass कर सकते हो. So I have list of list, है ना? So list of list है. So अगर आप इस list of lists को पास करोगे as array के अंदर, तो technically इसको भी possible है, इसमें आप dtype भी पास कर सकते हो. इसके अंदर आपको definitely दिख रहा होगा. ये क्या करेगा? आपको ये दिख रहा है यहाँ पर list of lists है. So basically it's a 2-dimensional data for me because I have 2 different dimensions here, in which I have 3 rows or 2 columns. So the dimension would be 2 and the shape is 3 cross 2, right? So I mean, आपको दिख रहा है. There are 3 elements and each of these 3 elements has 2 sub-elements. So you can read it the other way also. Right, so that's how my as array works. Similarly, as I've said, so it's not necessary that you're going to pass only list on top of this. You can also pass tuple also, so that's fair enough. So even the tuple will also another sequence for me in Python. So you can also pass tuple, and if you're going to do that, you're going to get the similar results 1, 2, 3. So nothing fancy here. Okay. So as array के बाद from iter. From iter भी again बहुत ही interesting function है यार. So from iter क्या करता है? Basically iterable object से आप array बनाते हो. So and for example, suppose you have an iterative object in which you wanna you have a list of objects coming through a loop. Like for example, a for I in range 1 to 10 करते हो, and then you want all of these different elements to be part of your arrays, right? So basically, and that loop is internally running in form of a code, right? Which is productionized already. So think from that perspective. So the data is coming from a loop, and you want this looped data, like which is coming from every other iteration, to be inserted or to be part of my array, right? So you're going to create an array from the iterable object, so which is coming from a loop, right? So again, very interesting thing. So whenever you have a certain such of requirement where you want to create an array, where you want to have an array from an iterable object, so you have a function called from iter. I mean, it's very lingual, from iter, from iterable, so it's more of a lingual thing. So here it takes again 3 interesting arguments. The first is iterable, so it's more of an iterable object for you. Either it is a class or either it is a range object or whatever, even it's a loop or a for loop is fine. So your iterable object, from where the iterable object is returning you the elements of individual elements of my array. So that's more of an iterable object for me. And then the d types and the count. So d type is again very common. So what do you want the d type to be of my data? Count -1 by default. So -1 here means meaning also if you're not giving any specific count, so it will take all of my elements from my arrays or iterable object, or if you want to specify any specific number of items to be considered, for example, say I only want the top 10, I only want the 10 elements to be considered from my array. So I can give count as 10, so it will take 10 elements only, and then it will stop. So it won't add any further element from the iteration. So likewise, if you won't give anything, it will take count as -1, so which means all the elements. Right, so here you can say this, I've created this iter element using the range object. So I'm using the simple iter class here. So here I have it, which is my iterable object. I'm specifying d type as int, right? So you can see this. From this iterable object, which is internally a range object of 10, I've created an array, which is nothing but a one-dimensional array of object class. And then I have 10 different elements starting from 0, which is internally a range object of 0 to 10. So from 10. Cool. So that's how from iter works. Again, very commonly used function is arrange, guys. You might have seen arrange quite fancy amount of time. So very commonly used function, very commonly used array attribute. So here it basically takes 4 different arguments. It's more of a list indexing kind of a thing, right? So you remember, so start, stop, step, and d type. So start, stop, step, basically your starting number, your ending number, and the step. So if you want to have any gaps between your individual start and stop, so you can have that step also given. Default is 0. So if you don't give any value, so it will take default as 0 as my start. Okay. End आपको हमेशा specify करना होता है. End of an interval, you have to give this end. So if we suppose I'm giving end np dot arrange 12, that means that by default it is taken start as 0, and the 12 is nothing but stop. So okay, whatever number I give, that will be taken as stop. So if I don't give any other argument apart from that, so start is by default 0. Step is again by default 1. Again, if you want to have any particular spacing, I can give it explicitly. So using this argument step. D type आपको पता ही है. So आपको पता है 2, 15, 3. So I have starting from 2, ending at 15. Step size is 3. So 2 plus 3, 5, 5 plus 3, 8, 8 plus 3, 11, 11 plus 3, 14, 14 plus 3, 17, 17 तो मैं जा नहीं सकता because end is 15. So I need to stop at 15. So before that I have 14 is my last element. Cool. Simple है. Next is my LineSpace and LockSpace. ये भी बहुत interesting है guys. बहुत commonly use होता है LineSpace. LineSpace क्या है? आप LineSpace भी पढ़ सकते हो, LineSpace भी पढ़ सकते हो, मतलब I mean depending on you. So LineSpace generally इसका pronunciation है. So LineSpace क्या है यार? जैसे for example here we have a specific step size, right? So for example I have the gapping का number. So I want the step to be 1. So basically 2 plus 1, 3 plus, I mean then 2 plus 1, 3, 3 plus 1, 4. So I have the step size given. Right, I'm specifying my start and stop also. But in the LineSpace, the objective is I'm gonna give the start and stop, but I'm gonna specify that now I want, say, between these start and stop, I want 100 elements. Right, so how many number of elements you want between this start and stop, that is what you're gonna give here in num. Okay, and so by default it will do the maths and it will find out the step size basically. Right, so step size. So for example, if I want to have 100 numbers between 1 to 10, so step size is 0.1, right? So 1, then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 likewise. So it'll do the maths internally, like how many number of elements I want, and based on that it'll calculate the step size. Okay. So step size is what return step. So I have another argument return step. If I give this return step as true, it's gonna return the step size also. Okay, by default it's not returning you the step size, the calculated step size, but if you're gonna give ret step as 2 or return step as 2, it's gonna return you the step size also. Endpoint nothing but yeah, you're using the last value of your range. So basically stop को consider करेगा वो. ठीक है? Example देख लेते हैं. For example, here I have giving the start as 10, stop as 20, and I want the num as 5. So basically I want 5 elements between my 10 and 20, and I don't want the end point to be considered. So basically I don't want 20 to be included in this. Okay, so you can see this starting from 10 and then end point include नहीं किया. So basically 18 को last point ले लिया इसने और 5 uniquely evenly spaced numbers को इसने मुझे दिया. 10 plus 2 12, 12 plus 2 14. इसका अगर मैं यहाँ पे ret step true कर दूंगा, for example ret step अगर मैं यहाँ पे true कर दूंगा, so it'll give me the step size which is nothing but 2 here. You can see this, it's more reading me an array element. This is my array list sequence, and then I have a step size which is 2 here. Cool. This is how my LineSpace works. Very interesting function. Again, the LockSpace का similar objective है. इसमें भी आप start, stop और num ही करते हो, number of elements चाहते हो. But in this case, the number of elements जो होंगे ना, वो आपके evenly spaced होंगे in terms of my log. So basically here, you can see this evenly the base of the LockSpace. So you're finding out the numbers in terms of your base of 10 from your evenly spaced numbers, whatever you want in terms of numbers. So ये जो evenly spaced numbers होंगे वो log of the numbers होंगे. So that's what you're trying to find out. So here my starting is 10. So 1. So basically log of 10, base 10 of 1. So base is by default 10 here. So you can also specify that. So log of 1 and then log of 2, and in this I want 10 evenly spaced number between log of 1 and log of 2, and by default if I don't give this number, default is 50, but again I'm specifying 10 here, so I want 10 numbers here. So again it's more of a base of log 10, and the default is 10, so as I said. So if I can specify my base also, so I can use 2, 3, whatever base I want. So base is by default 10, so accordingly the calculations will differ. Cool. So ये मेरे array attributes functions हैं guys. So array attributes में हमने क्या देखा, shape, reshape basically. अब how you are, I mean it's more of a lookout of your array. So that's more of my array attributes, correct? अभी हम इसके बाद directly jump करते हैं मेरे next set of functions पे, जो है मेरा 1 second, I have broadcasting पे तो हम इसको बाद में पढ़ेंगे. Yeah. Cool. So array manipulation function. So I'll come back to broadcasting towards the end. So it's more of other methods available. But let's cover the functionalities as well. So हमने array attributes देखा. Let's talk about array manipulation functions. इसमें flatten है, squeeze है, concat है, stack, split, append, insert, delete. So you're talking about my different arrays. How you're going to manipulate my arrays, right? So you have whether you're going to flatten out my single dimension array, or you're going to concat multiple arrays, you're going to split your arrays, you're going to stack up your arrays. So it's more of that sort of things, that sort of functions available here. Flatten, very simple object है यहाँ पे. Flatten क्या करता है? Again, it takes one argument here, which is very important, which is my order, right? So order basically, in which order you want to flatten out my data. So you want to take the rows first, or you want to take the columns first. So order basically आपको पता है C and F. So C is for my rows major. So do not get confused. C columns नहीं है, C मेरा rows है, ठीक है? C is for my row major, F is a Fortran format, which is nothing but my column major, right? So I have the flattening available here likewise. So here, suppose this is how my data looks like. So I have I've created arrange through an arrange function of 8, reshaping it to 2 cross 4, so 2-dimension data. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is my first row, and then 4, 5, 6 are in the second row. Now I'm specifying that I want to flatten out my data, which is my a.flatten. And I'm giving order as F, so basically column major. So column wise, I'm specifying that I want to have my data flattened. So basically the end result is a 1-dimension array, right? So here column wise means 0 and 4, my first column. So that's going to be my first 2 elements. Then I have 1 and 5. So I'm going to have 1 and 5 here. So likewise the third column and then the 4th column, right? So that's how things work. If I give it as C here, in this case, the rows will be considered first. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3 as my first 4 columns, then 4, 5, 6, 7 as my second list of columns. I mean the rest 4 columns, 4 elements, right? So again, an interesting way to flatten out. So it's basically flattening क्या कर रहा है आपका n dimension array को वो single dimension array में flatten कर रहा है. So many of the times you need to flatten your data according to your need, and then you can always reshape it later after applying your any functionalities on top of that, right? So flatten के बाद आता है transpose तो कुछ भी नहीं है. So transpose nothing but you're making your rows to columns and columns to rows. So basically very simple. So अगर 2 cross 3 हो तो 3 cross 2 हो जाएगा, 3 cross 4 है तो 4 cross 3 हो जाएगा. Simple transpose. ठीक है। स्क्वीज क्या करता है? स्क्वीज रिमूव्स द अननेसेसरी वन डायमेंशनल एंट्री फ्रॉम द शेप ऑफ अ गिवन अरे। फॉर एग्जांपल हियर आप देख सकते हो, यहाँ पे मैंने एक अरेंज फंक्शन के थ्रू विच इज 9, विच इज आई एम क्रिएटिंग द बेस्ड ऑन 3 एलिमेंट्स एंड आई एम रीशेपिंग इट टू 1 क्रॉस 3 क्रॉस 3। आपको दिख रहा होगा यहाँ पे अननेसेसरी 3 ब्रैकेट्स हैं, राइट? बिकॉज ये ऑल्दो 3 डायमेंशन डेटा है, बट इसमें 3 डायमेंशन की कोई जरूरत नहीं है। देयर इज नो सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ द थर्ड डायमेंशन हियर, राइट? There's no significance here. There's no additional information coming out from the third element, third dimension of my array here, right? So squeeze, what it does, it removes, it chunks out my outer first dimension of my array. So you can see this, after squeezing, I have I'm left out with the array which is not a 3-dimensional array but a 2-dimensional array here. So I'm chunking out my outer 1-dimension entry from the shape of my given array. So that's what squeeze does, okay? So I've read about flatten, I've read about transpose, squeeze, simple है. Concatenate. So concatenate simple है. Concatenate basically again you are concatenating 2 different arrays. इसमें थोड़ा सा interesting है. मतलब I have concat and append. So दोनों को हम one by one समझेंगे. Concatenate क्या करता है? You are actually you're joining 2 different arrays. Again here axis becomes very important. So आप कौन से axis पे उसको join करना चाह रहे हो? Default is 0. It's like more of a row addition, right? And you can also specify axis as one, basically my column addition. So depending on how exactly you want to look the data as, right? So here अभी आपको दिख रहा होगा. So I have 2 different arrays, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here is a 2-dimension array here, and then I have 5, 6, 7, 8, again another 2-dimension array here, and I'm concatenating based on my so now look at this first. So just a minute. So now it's more, now I'm concatenating A and B here. I'm not specifying any axis. So the default is 0. So basically I'm adding up my rows here. So can you see this? So 1, 2 and 3, 4 from the first element, first array, and then that got added up in terms of rows. So now I have the shape as 2 cross 2 here, right? So all of my arrays of 2 cross 2, but in the output arrays of what? 4 cross 2. So now my arrays got added up, right? So my arrays got added up here. So I have now 4 rows and 2 columns because the by default axis is 0, right? So I'm concatenating or stack, I'm kind of adding my 2 arrays on my rows here. So that's what my concatenating is giving me. Now if I'm going to give, say, suppose axis as 1. It's like V stack. Absolutely, Shubham. Thank you so much for. I didn't want to take that name right now, but it's like more of V stack. Yes. So now in this case, can you see this? Now I have C here. So now in this case, I'm stacking up my data. It's more of a horizontal stacking in this case, right? So I'm gonna print you the C. So just let me print C also. So now can you see this? So now in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So from my first set of arrays, but now at the end, I'm horizontally adding. So I'm concatenating my other array in terms of my columns. So now in this case, I have 5, 6, and 7, 8 added on my column side, right? So I have my the columns now is got increased. So now the shape is 2 cross 4. It's not 4 cross 2. It's 2 cross 4. So it's always very important to understand how exactly you are concatenating your data, how concatenating your arrays, right? So that's how it works. Stacking भी similar है यार. So again I think आप समझ गए होंगे. So but again इसका थोड़ा difference है, मैं आपको समझाता हूँ. Concatenating और stacking में difference क्या है? इसमें बहुत जरूरी है. देखो concatenating में क्या है? आप इस अरे के एलिमेंट्स को क्या ना एक ही सिंगल अरे में आप ऐड करो. सो बेसिकली आपका डिमेंशन चेंज नहीं हो रहा. यू आर नॉट चेंजिंग योर डिमेंशन ऑफ माय अरेज. आई होप दैट पॉइंट इज क्लियर, राइट? डिमेंशन मतलब 2D या 3D अरे की मैं बात कर रहा हूं. आप शेप चेंज कर रहे हो. यू आर चेंजिंग द शेप बट यू आर नॉट चेंजिंग द डिमेंशन ऑफ माय अरेज यार, राइट? सो ये एक समझने वाली बात है. सो कॉन्कैटेनेटिंग में आप डिमेंशन चेंज नहीं करते हो, आप शेप चेंज करते हो. यू आर चेंजिंग द शेप. आप इधर रो पे ऐड करोगे या कॉलम्स पे ऐड करोगे. बट स्टैकिंग में क्या होता है? स्टैकिंग में एक बार ध्यान से देखते हैं. मैं एक बार आपको अगेन दोनों प्रिंट करता हूं. लेट मी शो इट यू द आउटपुट. प्रिंट ए, प्रिंट बी भी कर देता हूं. एंड देन आई हैव सी जो कि मैं कॉलम पे ऐड कर रहा हूं. शेप तो बाद में करूंगा, पहले मैं प्रिंट सी करता हूं. प्रिंट सी करता हूं एंड देन मैं अगेन यहाँ पे प्रिंट डी भी करता हूं. ठीक है. अभी मैं इन सबको अभी कमेंट कर देता हूँ. Now look at this. Okay, so now I have two different arrays similar to the, इसका shape क्या है, 2 cross 2 है, 1 2 3 4 and 5 6 7 8. अब मैंने क्या किया, इसको stack up कर दिया on my row axis 0. ठीक है, बेसिकली मैं by default to 0 ही होता, अगर मैं 0 नहीं भी दूंगा तो axis 0 ही लेगा. ठीक है, so अभी मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, रो पे ऐड कर रहा है. अब इसमें आप ध्यान से देखो, अभी मेरा dimension चेंज होगा यहाँ पे. So now in this case I have 1 2 3 4 as my first element. Now I have added another dimension where my second element of my another dimension is 5 6 7. Can you see this? Now I have three square brackets here. So now my dimension has changed. So it from 2 cross 2 now it is 2 cross 2 cross 2, because each of my sub elements is also having two elements, and each of these two elements has individually two sub elements in it. Cool? Clear? स्टैक में आप अपना ओरिजिनल डायमेंशन को चेंज कर देते हो. सो यू आर चेंजिंग द डायमेंशन ऑफ माय ओरिजिनल अरे, राइट? बट कॉन्कैटिनेट में आप डायमेंशन चेंज नहीं करते हो, आप शेप चेंज करते हो. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है गाइस, ऑलवेज रिमेंबर दिस. सो आपका यहाँ पर आप बेसिकली आपने शेप चेंज कर दिया. सिमिलरली अगर आप 1 पे करोगे तो आपको मैं अब 1 का दिखाता हूँ. नाउ लुक एट दिस. सो अगेन इन दिस केस आप देखोगे 1 2 3 4 एंड सो यहाँ पे सॉरी मैं क्या दिखाना चाह रहा हूँ. सो यू हैव हियर, सो यू कैन सी दिस 1 2 and 5 6 and then you have 3 4 and 7 8. So आप columns में stack up कर रहे हो. So here this is my this is my say 1 2 and then 5 6 and then you have 3 4 and then 7 8. So आप basically columns से उसको stack up कर रहे हो. Cool. Again, it's more like you're changing the dimension of my array. You can see this. I have again 3 brackets here. So you're changing the dimension again. Is 2 cross 2 cross 2. Again here at stack और v stack कुछ नहीं है, horizontal stack और vertical stack, which is horizontal में मतलब अगर आपको 0 है तो आप 0 को ना दे करके आप यहाँ पे अगर h stack करोगे, for example h stack, so by default take it as 0. Okay, so it's like more of that thing. Okay, and then v stack में वो by default 1 होता है. Cool. So horizontal stack and vertical stack. But again, the important thing to understand between the difference of my concatenate and stacking is, concatenate में आप मेरे अपना ओरिजिनल स्ट्रक्चर को चेंज नहीं कर रहे हो, ओरिजिनल डायमेंशन को चेंज नहीं कर रहे हो, आप शेप को चेंज कर रहे हो. बट हियर यू आर चेंज इन स्टैकिंग अप, यू आर चेंजिंग द डिमेंशन ऑफ माय अरेज व्हेन यू आर स्टैकिंग अप, राइट? सो दैट्स समथिंग व्हिच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. कूल. सो नेक्स्ट हम बात करते हैं स्प्लिट पे. स्प्लिट अगेन बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग यार. स्प्लिट सिंपल है. अगेन इसमें आपका दो मेजर आर्ग्यूमेंट है. अरेज तो कॉमन है, जो भी आप स्प्लिट करना चाहोगे. इसमें सेकंड है इंडाइसेस. सो आप बेसिकली कौन से इंडाइसेस से आप स्प्लिट करना चाहते हो. सो योर पॉइंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट फॉर योर स्प्लिट. ओके, एंड देन डेफिनेटली द एक्सेस, किस एक्सेस पे स्प्लिट करना चाहते हो. सो नाउ लुक एट दिस. फॉर एग्जांपल I have an array of range 9. So I have this 1D array. 0 1 2 3 5 6 7 8 9 elements का मैंने बनाया starting from 0, and then I'm gonna split this array at the point 3. So I want to split at the element 3. This is my point of interest. This is my index. This is my point of interest from where I want to split up, right? So now in this case, can you see this? I have at the third index. So basically 0 1 2 मेरा first element बन गया, and then I have 3 4 5 my 3 index again the next 3 indexes, and then 6 7 8 by the next 3 indexes. Cool. Again here now in this case I'm specifying only the one, I mean the number of elements, the sections I want to be part of. But if I give in form of the selections of or more of a list of indices, in this case what it does, it will take the exact element locations. For example, I'm giving 4, so the fourth index will be my first split here. So 0 1 2 3, so I have my first 4 elements part of my first split. Then the first split happens, and then the second split happens as 7th index. So I have my 7 and 8 here, and then the 4 5 6 part of my second element. So that's how. So splitting can also, I can give either the number of elements I want to be part of my splits, or I can also have the array of my splits. So, or basically the list of my indices I can also pass. Cool. So again, part of my split. H split or V split, again same thing here. So more of an horizontal split or more of a vertical split. So for example here आप देख सकते हो, suppose I have this array. So I have created this 16, so 4 cross 4 में बनाया. So I have 2 dimensional array 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and likewise till 15. I'm gonna split with the indices 2. So basically at the horizontal split the A at index level 2. So now can you see this? So my index level 2 here is this. So I'm doing it from the horizontal, basically the column wise, right? So here I have 0, 1 as my first element here, and then the 4, 5, second element, 8, 9, and then 12, 13. So this entire thing is my first array, and then the second array would be 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, and then 14, 15. This is what my second element here is, right? So I'm splitting at the second index of my n dimension array on horizontal split, basically column wise. Likewise, I can do a vertical split, so I can do the similar thing of vertical split here. So it's more of specifying 2 here. So basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 will be my first array, and the second would be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, my second array. So it's more of that. Cool. Any questions, guys? Do let me know. Okay, so cool. Again, next हमारा function है again. We have three joining operations here. Okay, the first is concat. Concat मैंने आपको बताया कि आप dimension change नहीं कर रहे हो, shape change कर रहे हो. Stack में आप dimension change कर रहे हो. Now look at the third joining operation, which is append. Okay, append क्या करता है? Append again, it works similarly to your list append. आप list में जब append करते हो तो क्या होता है? Last में end होता है, last में add होता है, right? So it's basically similar thing here. It adds values at the end of your input array. Okay, but ये end कैसे end को identify करते हैं वो एक बार figure out करते हैं. ठीक है, मैं एक बार one by one print करता हूँ इसमें, आपको तब समझ में आएगा. Cool. So now look at this array. So I have this first array, 2-dimensional array, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is my array that the shape is 2 cross 3. इसमें किसी को कोई doubt नहीं है. Now I'm appending this array A here. At the end, I'm ending 7, 8, 9. So interesting thing to understand is the output here. Okay, so the output here is now flattened out. Can you see this? So the output here is flattened out, and the output is added 7, 8, 9 at the end. So I have the elements here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and in this case I have the output is 7, 8, 9. Okay, I have not specified anything here. So by default, if I don't specify the axis, it's gonna flatten the result. It's gonna give me a one-dimension output. Okay, now if I'm gonna specify the axis here, so now I'm gonna now look at this output. So in this case, the axis is 0. That means my axis 0 is row, right? So it has added another row 7, 8, 9 at the end, which is like here. So now the shape is 3 cross 3. So it's not 2 cross 3, it's 3 cross 3. If I took the shape here, so it will give me 3 cross 3, right? So by default, if I do an append here, it will flatten out the data. So basically it will give me a one-dimensional array. But if I give the axis, it will add it according to my the shape of my array, right? So in this case, if I give 0, it's going to add it at my rows. Likewise, if I want to do in terms of my say columns, so here you can see this. I have the data 5, 5, 5, 7, 8, 9 got added up here. So 5, 5, 5 for my first row and 7, 8, 9 for the second row. So and because I've specified dot 1 here, I mean axis as 1 here, and in this I can also see the shape of the same thing. So shape is like 2 cross 6 here because I've given the axis as 1 and I've added 3 extra elements on each of my rows. So that means that 2 cross 3 has changed from 2 cross 3 to 2 cross 6, right? Again, remember guys, if you do not give the axis here, you're not changing the dimension of my array here. Okay, so interesting thing to understand. So 3 different types of my joining operation: concat, append, and your क्या था यार एक और भूल गया मैं भी, stack. Sorry, yeah, concat, stack, and append. So try to understand the difference of these 3 things. Accordingly, you can use it for your work. Cool. Insert, next है insert. इसमें again simple area. देखो अब generally इसमें आप append में आप last में append. So by default append inserts your value at the end, right? So but again in this case for insert you can specify the location where you want to be part of. So that is something here. So you can see you can pass the exact index, so where you want this to be part of. So that's how it will work. So I'm gonna show it to you. So for example, if you want to do that, so I have my print here, this, and then I'm going to insert at the third location 11 and 12. So here you can see this at the third location I'm inserting 11 and 12 because I have not specified any axis here. So it is flattened out my data, so it is giving me a one-dimension data. Cool. Now if I'm going to use this, so now I'm going to use this. So in this case, I'm adding at the first index my element 11 at axis 0, which is my row. So now you can see this is an element 11 is one element, right? Single dimension. So in this case, but I have two rows. I'm in two columns. So basically, two information has to be added for one row if I have to add it from the row, right? So this is a smaller dimension, right? So this got broadcasted. So the multiple replicas of the same information got broadcasted here. So 11 and 11 got added here. So it's a broadcasting along the axis 0. Likewise, if I give the element 11 here for my axis 1, in this case, you can see this for each of my columns. So my first index of my column, so basically my second column, the elements 11, 11, 11 got added up. So it got broadcasted here. So that's more of the replica set. Cool. So that's how it works. Delete be simple. Yeah, delete by basically you can specify what exact element you want to delete at which state. So I have like for example, I'm giving the element here and I'm specifying the index value. So I want the first index element to be deleted from the axis 1. So the first column 2 will get deleted. So likewise it works. Cool. ये दो मेजर बड़े फंक्शन सेट्स हैं हमारे पास. अरे एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं बेसिकली आपके, अरे मैनिपुलेशंस. इसमें किसी को कोई डाउट है? एनीबडी हैज एनी क्वेश्चन? अपेंड, स्टैक एंड देन आपका कॉन्कैट, किसी में कोई इशू गाइस? जस्ट टेक a minute and then let me know if anybody has any questions. So we're gonna anyway cover the other functions also, but I just wanted to understand if anybody has any doubt in that. Cool. So if things are fine, then we can proceed to the next set of functions. So अब यहाँ से हमारा थोड़ा सा easy है because we have already seen it. What if the size of array is large? So what do you mean by that? I mean, I did not get your point. So what if the size of array is large? So you mean to say that वो concatenate कैसे होगा? Like what exactly your question is, Sandeep? I mean, I did not get your question. If you can just clarify that. Anyway, till the time Sandeep is coming back to us, we can proceed. So string. So as I was talking about NumPy, yes, it can have strings also. Okay, so Sandeep says, yeah, if array has with many dimensions, yeah, उसमें कोई issue नहीं है ना यार. So similarly again, जैसे आपको मैंने बताया कि suppose if you are adding up, appending a particular value or inserting a value on any of my higher dimension array, तो वो broadcast हो जाएगा. So जो smaller dimension है, it will get broadcasted. So basically उसका replica set create हो जाएंगे. As I've showed you, right? So I have the element 11, which was a smaller dimension array. So higher dimension में कोई मतलब नहीं बनता है. वो n हो, 3 हो, 5 हो, 30 हो, 300 हो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. So whatever dimension it is, the smaller dimension will get broadcasted to match the dimension of my higher dimension. Okay, basically उसके copies create हो जाएंगे, so replicas create हो जाएंगे. Whatever axis you are I mean adding that, inserting that value to, right? So it does not really matter much. So like the concept is the smaller dimension will get broadcasted to the higher dimension to match up the dimension of my higher dimension. ठीक है? Cool. String. So strings, आपको जैसे मैंने बताया था, yes, it's a very important and very frequently asked question. So can arrays have strings? Yes, arrays can have strings. So, but yes, to call up the string functions, there is a superclass available here. So NumPy itself does not have the functionalities of string. It has a superclass called as char. So the char superclass has the functionalities of my string. So whenever you're going to call any of the string functionalities, you have to always call the superclass char, and then you can call the string function. So add, multiply, center, and all that. So we've already seen it. So quickly, add क्या करता है यार? So it adds, it's basically concatenates your elements, element wise concatenation करता है. So नथिंग है. So for example ABCDF है तो वो concatenate करके ABCDF साथ में दे देगा. I have two dimension here, hello hi ABCXYZ, so it's gonna add it up. So hello with ABC and hi with XYZ. So because array indexing it works here, right? So it's more of my array indexing concatenation. So add is more of a concatenation of my strings, so element wise concatenation of my strings, right? Simply multiply क्या है? Simple multiply जो आपका string multiplication होता है, it's like performing multiple concatenation elsewise. So multiply का definition क्या है? Multiple concatenation आप strings में वही करते हो. So for example, if you want to multiply hello 3 times, so what it's going to do is going to print hello 3 times. So I have a small space here just for your thing, so do not get confused. This space is coming because you have a space here. Okay. So hello is getting multiplied 3 times. So if I don't have a space here, so it's going to give me hello, hello, hello together, right? So it's more of that sort. So it's like more of a multiple concatenation being happening here. Cool. So with this, I have another function center. So center क्या करता है? It's more of a padding function. So for example, if you're doing any logging work, right? So if you have any loggers being placed internally, or you're putting out something in form of a document dump, right? So in this case, you want to have some paddings to be done. So for example, an identifier, right? Okay, this is a section identifier for me. So I can pad up a value. I can pass this value on a loop also. And then I can add certain paddings on the left and the right hand side of my word, right? So here I can have any character. So I have used the character star here, fill char is star, and the number of the width, basically the number of characters I want. So if I give 20, that means that 10 will take in the left and 10 will go on the right, right? So I can give any character here. I can give a dollar also. So it's like I can give anything. So I can give hash also, it's fine. So it's more of a logger for me. Right, so generally I've seen it being used in the loggers, and I've seen it being used in the document dumps, right? So it's more of a section identifying. So like you can give it's like an identifier for me in the log. So that's how it works. So that's basically how my center function is being used. Capitalize क्या करता है? So I have 3 different functions in casing वाला part in string. So capitalize, title, and the lower upper. Right, so capitalize क्या करता है? It's more of a sentence का capitalizing. So whenever you're writing a sentence, for example, say my name is Arpit Jain, right? So in this case, I whenever I write a sentence, I generally write M is capital, right? Because M is the starting word, starting character, the first character of my first word of the sentence, right? So we generally write a sentence, it's more of the first character of the first word. We write it as the capital letter, right? So it's more of capitalize. What it does, it'll mark the word, the entire passed out string as a sentence. And the first character of my first word will get capitalized here. So that's like, for example, if I do capitalize here, M will get capitalized. So M is like my, M is like being capitalized here. So it's more of a sentence for me. The other version is title. So title, what it does, every, like for a sentence, how many words are present. So for all the words, the first character of each word will get uppercased, so like capitalized. So that's what my title works at. So the second function for my casing is title. So capitalize is my first character of my first word. Title is like first character of all the words, right? So that's what it is. So for example, I have say hello, how are you? You can see this H capital, another H capital, another A capital, and then Y capital. So all the first character of my every element, every words is being capitalized. So likewise, I have lower and upper. So lower is like lowering all the characters, all the words, and like similarly upper means upper all the characters, all the words, right? So that's how lower works. You can see this hello world. So all the characters are being lowered. Likewise upper may all the characters are being upper, so uppercase. So I have 3 different sections here. Capitalize, the first character of my first word. Title, first character of all the words. Then lower upper, all the characters of all the words are affected. Cool. I think याद रहेगा, ये simple हो गया. ठीक है. Split again, it works similar to your other Python split. So इसमें आप string split जो आप generally करते हो, इसमें आप separator डालते हो. So by default is space. So even in normal Python also the default separator is space. So here also again the split always returns a list. Here also it's returning an array list. So I have suppose I'm splitting it in form of say here. So hello, how are you? So if I'm going to split that, it's going to return me 4 sub elements in form of a list. So I have the hello as my first element, And the second element is how, because there's a space between, so the string got split up based on the space. Likewise, if I do not have a space, I can specify a particular character also. So for example, suppose I have I love my India, and instead of space I have commas in between, right? But I want this comma to be identified as a separator, so I can specify a particular separator. So by default, if I don't give anything, it will take this. Okay, this is my by default. Okay, suppose if I'm not giving it anything here, so can you see this? This entire thing is coming as my one word. It's not splitting up anything because there's no space here, right? It's not splitting anything. So but here the identifier is my comma, so I can specify sep as comma, and I can give. So now it is giving me 4 different elements or characters or words basically. So I as a separate word, love as a separate word, and then my, and then India. Cool. So split is like splitting up of my words of my sentence, right? So splitting up of my words. Now I have split lines. Split lines kya hai? Splitting of my lines of my paragraph. So basically now I don't have a single line, I have multiple lines. It's more of a paragraph for me. So now split lines will split the lines together. So now I can apply split on top of my split line. So because first, if I have a paragraph, first I'll split out the separate sentences. Now on top of my separate sentences, I'll find out each of my words. So split can be worked on top of my split lines. So that's the hierarchy, right? So generally in my doc codex, I could see that /n /r are the so line boundaries generally, right? So this is like more of a line boundaries for my as an identifier for my new line, right? So that's how by default is coded here. So if you're going to split lines, use the split lines here. So you have the words here like hello /n and then how are you. So this /n is treated as a new line for me. If I'm going to pass it on the split line, so I have 2 different elements here. So hello is my first line, and then how are you is my second line, right? Now I can pass split on top of my how are you. So I'll get another set of 4 words like how, are, and you will get separated up. Cool. So that's how it works. So pretty much simple. Then strip. Yeah. So strip is again good. So strip is like you're stripping off any specified character from both the leading or the trailing end, right? So it's important to know. So both at the leading and the trailing end, my elements will go. So now, for example, here, suppose this is my words, Arpit Jain, and then I have an A here at the end, right? So I want to strip off A, for example. So here, always remember, it's going to strip off both from the leading as well as the trailing end. So now I have A on in the starting also, the leading end also, right? But I wanted to remove it from A end. So technically I would have simply used the index filtering out, but if I use strip in this case, it's going to strip off both my leading and the trailing end. So I'm left with Arpit Jain. Likewise, if I pass it like 2 characters, say A and N, so it's going to find out both A or N, right? So either A or N. So that's what it does. So you can see this now. It has stripped off A as well as N in this case, right? So you can see this now. Arpit Jain is only left, right? So now that's my third way of using it. I can also pass in form of a list. So in this case, the output will be 2 different elements. So the first element would be where only the A stripping would happen. And the second element would be where the N stripping would happen. The second element, right? So now look at this. I'm going to run it. So I have 2 different elements here. The first is where my A stripping is being happening. So A is getting stripped off, the first word. The second is N. So A remains intact, and then the N goes off from the end for the second word. Cool. So likewise, strip ka opposite hai, split ka opposite hai join. So join mein again, I have 3 different elements here. I can join it based on a particular subsets or a particular character based on which I want to join it at. So suppose I'm going to use colon for here. So you can see this ABC got joined up using a colon. Or if I have certain 2-dimension data, so multiple elements here, so I can use different set of joining characters also. So like colon for my first element, hyphen for my second element. So I have like A colon B colon C here, and then D hyphen E hyphen B. So hyphen half. That is also quite possible. Likewise, the very last function available under my strings is replace. So replace again simpler. Very simple objective as compared to my Python strings. So here I'm saying that the replace, so my characters available inside my the string is going to replace. So I have again here the syntax is the same. So I have my the sentence or my array string. In top of this, the second argument would be the exact pattern which I want to replace, and the third is with what I want to replace it with. Right? So now I have so I want in this array string I want is to be replaced with was. So this is what it means, right? So now I have a string says like he is a good boy, he is staying in block B. So now the output would be he was a good boy and then he was staying in block B, right? So that's what it says here, right? So similar operation. So again इसमें आपको दिख रहा होगा. So generally हम जो string operations करते हैं पाइथन में, यहाँ पे भी सेम ही है सब कुछ, everything is almost similar, but it's just like to call the string operations on top of my numpy, you have to call a superclass which is char. So just you have to take care of that, and rest the functionalities and everything is almost similar. ठीक है, cool. आगे बढ़े. Anybody has any questions, please do let me know. So I understand it's going to be a bit of extended session today, but again please bear with me, and still anybody has any questions, do let me know, because I want to conclude this today. So maybe I am going to take maybe 15-20 more minutes and then we're going to wrap up for the day. Cool. Right, so now coming back to my rounding function. So rounding functions में we have three different functions available. So I have around, floor and seal. आपको याद होगा I was talking about around, floor and seal. So around क्या करता है? It takes the decimal का value, so exact decimal point. So the number of decimal units I want till where I want the rounding to be done, right? So I am specifying the decimal का number here, right? So in the around function. Flooring and sealing on the other hand, it gives you the nearest integer, either greater or lesser than my given number. So I'll talk about that. So let's take around first. So around का जैसा आपको मैंने बताया, it takes the very interesting, very important argument here, the decimals, right? So it's basically I have to specify till what exact number of decimals I want the rounding to be done, right? So round नहीं है, around है, ठीक है, याद रखना. So round generally हम round use करते हैं in Python, but in NumPy it's around, है ना? So ये थोड़ा सा minor difference है. So here, as I've said, so by default, if I don't give the decimals, it'll take default as 0. So basically, it'll give you the till the 0th decimal value. So basically, it'll give you an integer with a 0 decimal, right? So that, I mean, a floaty they output में, but it's more of an integer for you. Okay. Now, for example, here you can see this. So now first remove the decimal one. Okay. So now in this case, what I've done is, I'm not specifying the decimal one. So any decimal. So it's vertex. It'll take the decimal as 0, right? So nearest integer वो देगा. So 1.0 है. So 1.0 तो 1 ही देगा. इसमें तो कोई doubt नहीं है. Now 5.55 जो है आपका देखो converted to 6 because rounding कैसे काम करता है. So 0.50 से ज़्यादा है तो it'll take the nearest integer 6 हो जाएगा. So 5.5 है तो ये 5.6 हो जाएगा, and then 5.6 है तो 5.6 का 6 हो जाएगा यहाँ पे. So that's how rounding works. I hope rounding के logics clear हैं सबको. Right, so I have my is given as 6. So because the decimal 0 है, so decimal के बाद कोई integer नहीं होगा, कोई element नहीं होगा. Similarly 1, 2, 3 तो same हो गया. 0.567 converted to 1. 25.532 got converted to 26. Right. So that's how my default rounding works in the around function when I'm not specifying the decimal anything. So it takes the default as 0. Cool. So now again the next is I'm specifying decimal as 1, right? So in this case I'm saying that now my decimal is actually 1. So now what happens in this case? Now look at the distinction here. So now I'm specifying that decimal के बाद एक element, एक integer होना चाहिए. So I need one element to be ahead of my the decimal space. So till 1. So now 5.55 देखो क्या हुआ? In this case it was giving me 6, but now it's giving me 5.6. So that's the difference here. So likewise here you can see this. I have 0.6 here because 0.567 got converted to 0.6, and then 25.532 got converted to 25.5 because 3 is lesser than 5. Cool. So that's how my around works. इसके बाद आता है floor and seal. Similar है. Floor and seal में आपको क्या बताया था मैंने कि it returns the largest integer but not greater than the input parameter. Okay, so nearest integer not greater than the input parameter. Likewise, ceiling में क्या है? Nearest integer which is greater than my input parameter. So just this one. Like for example, suppose -1.7 है. So -1.7 से nearest integer क्या क्या है? -1 and -2, right? So -1 and -2 में से कौन सा बड़ा है, कौन सा छोटा है? फ्लोर मतलब छोटा, फ्लोर नीचे होता है ना, सो नीचे मतलब छोटा, सीलिंग मतलब ऊपर मतलब बड़ा. सो हियर फ्लोर में -1.7 से नियरेस्ट इंटीजर्स क्या है? -1 एंड -2 है, मतलब -1 में से -2 कौन बड़ा है? -2 छोटा है, राइट? सो -2 विल बिकम हियर. लाइकवाइज 1.5 से नियरेस्ट इंटीजर्स क्या है? 1 एंड 2. कौन सा छोटा है? 1 विल कम हियर. -0.2 से दो इंटीजर क्या है? 0 एंड -1, राइट? सो कौन सा छोटा है? -1 विल कम हियर. सो लाइकवाइज 0.6 में 0 एंड 1, सो 0 विल कम हियर. 10 तो 10 ही रह जाएगा. इन द सेम केस -1.7 में कौन सा -1 एंड -2 है? तो -1 बड़ा है. सो नाउ इन दिस केस बड़ा वाला आएगा यहाँ पे. So that's how the flooring and the ceiling functions work. So likewise, the nearest integer either largest or smallest compared to my input parameter. So that's how ceiling and flooring works. ठीक है? Cool है guys. Anybody has any questions? Cool. So quickly next set of functions भी cover कर लेते हैं. Arithmetic functions. So arithmetic तो basic है. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. So ये तो simple basic functions है जो किसी भी arithmetic operations में होता है. So simple है. Again arrays में भी simpler same तरीके से ही होता है. So add, subtract, multiply and divide. Along with that we have reciprocal, power and mod. Right. So reciprocal is like 1 by or 1 divided by something. Power is like power of to the base of something, and then modulus means basically the remainder of my dividends. So let's take them one by one. So now add, subtract, multiply and divide. इसमें कैसे होता है guys? So now suppose that I have my two elements. इसमें simple मैंने क्या करा है? np.arrange में 9 करा है. So the shape is 3 cross 3. So 1 2 3 first row, 0 1 2 0 1 2 first row, 3 4 5 second row, 6 7 8 my third row. And then I have my second element array as 10 10 10. So it's a smaller dimension. It's like 1 dimension array, right? आपको definitely दिख रहा होगा कि because now यहाँ पे 2 dimension का array. So आपको यहाँ पे 3 cross 3 है, and then यहाँ पे आपका ये 2 dimension का array है, ये 1 dimension का array है, right? Now I'm adding up A and B. So यहाँ पर आपका broadcasting का फंडा आता है. So now look at this. So I have 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 as my 2-dimension array. Then I have another array which is 10 10 10, right? So now I'm adding up my two arrays. So adding up में क्या होगा? So आपको मैंने क्या बताया था broadcasting में क्या होता है? Because ये 2 different dimension है, right? जो smaller dimension है वो broadcast हो जाएगा on the higher dimension. In this case small dimension है 10 10 10. तो broadcast होकर क्या हो जाएगा? 10 will get broadcasted to each of my individual elements of my higher dimension. So इसमें individual elements क्या क्या है? 0 1 2 is my first element, 3 4 5 is my second element, and then 6 7 8 is my third element. So 10 10 10 जो है it'll get added up individually to all of my individual sub elements. So अभी क्या होगा? 10 10 10 will get first added to 0 1 and 2. So the output will be 10 11 and 12, and then output will be here 13 14 and 15, and then will be 16 17 and 18. Cool. That's what broadcasting means, guys. So I hope people were asking this question. So now I hope this point is clear, right? So broadcasting means the smaller dimension wala jo array hai, it is getting added up to my higher dimension array. Cool. So that's what it works. Similarly, subtract में भी same ही होगा. So subtract में in this case जो higher dimension है, which is like my 0 1 2 here, this one. From this I'm subtracting 10, so it's like 0 minus 10, so it will be minus 10, then 1 minus 10, it will be minus 9, and then minus 8. Likewise till minus 2 I have all the subtracted elements here available for my arrays. Similarly for multiply and divide, so it will be like 0 divided by 10, and then 1 divided by 10, 2 divided by 10, and then 3 divided by 10, similar thing. So smaller arrays for each of my individual elements of my higher dimensions. Cool. So that's how my multiplication also works. and then divide. So it's like same thing, 0 divide by 10, 1 divide by 10, 2 divide by 10, and then 3 divide by 10 again. So likewise, so like a dividends also available here. So similarly same thing, function same ही है, add, subtract, multiply, divide, काम same ही हो रहा है. But again, the problem is the only objective I took this example was because I have two different dimensions here. One is of higher dimension, second is of lower dimension. So in case में broadcasting हो रहा है. So lower dimension का array is getting broadcasted on the higher dimension. So that's what is happening here. Cool. The next function is my reciprocal, guys. So reciprocal again मैंने आपको बताया था, it's nothing but like 1 by हो जाता है. So I have something like any element here, 0.25, 1 or whatever it is. So it is giving me the output will be like 1 by of that element, like 1 by 0.25 or 1 by 1.33, 1 by 1, 1 by 0, 1 by 100. So 1 by 0 क्या होगा, infinity होता है, right? So it will give me that result. So basically if I'm gonna do reciprocal of my elements here, so I've run this. So 0.25, so 1 by 0.25, nothing but 4, right? And then 1 by 1.33, so like 0.715. And then 1 by 1 is 1, 1 by 0 is infinity, right? And then 1 by 100 is 0.01. So like it's more of a reciprocal of my elements here. So that's how my reciprocal function works. The last two are the power and the mod. So power, nothing but again power or to the base of something. So now I'm doing an exponent of to the power of 2. So for example here 10 to the power of 2 is like 10 cross 10, right? Or 100 or 100, and then in that case here 100 to the power of 2, that means 100 cross 100 or 1000 or 10,000, right? And then again I have 1000 to the power of 2, so that is 1000 cross 1000 or like 10 lakhs. So that's how the power, it's like simple power, जो आप calculator में भी power करते हो, it's like more of same power is happening here. The last is my mod, which is nothing but my remainder of my division. So remainder के लिए definitely two different functions होना चाहिए, two different arrays होना चाहिए. So one will be getting divided by the other array, right? So for example here you can see this. So I have my two different arrays here, 10, 20, 30, and then another is 3, 5, 7. So here, so each of my element wise, so always remember, so in arrays the operation will happen always element wise, right? So here 10 will get first divided by 3, and then the remainder is 1. So because 3 will get divided up to 9, so 3 cross 3 is 9, and post that it can't get divided. So 1 is my remainder, so that was 1 is giving me the output element here. The first element is 1, and likewise for 5 is actually cutting off 20 completely 4 times, so the remainder is 0. And then I have for third is for 7, so 7 cross 4 is 28, so 2 is the remainder. So now I have 2 here as my mod. Cool. So that's how my arithmetic functions are working in specifically on NumPy. Cool. I think we are left with 2 more functions here. So let me just quickly cover that. So the second last is my statistical functions, guys. So statistical functions, I was talking about my stats like min, max, percentile, median, mean, standard deviation, variance. So all of these statistical measures are also possible on my arrays, right? So arrays in this case, it should be a numbers, right? I cannot have mean of my numbers, right? So I can have mode of my numbers. I cannot have mean of my numbers. So likewise, it's important to understand that. So for some of the odd things, you need to understand the objective and the data which you're passing through. So you cannot apply any function anywhere. It has to be a logical understanding, right? So that's pretty much anyway clear. Cool. So min max basically क्या है, same चीज है. So the way min and max are working for your entire any other operations, right? So in NumPy we have, instead of min and max, we have a min and a max, right? So like array min and array max basically. So it's like more of a min and a max if you have to call it as, right? So technically, so what happens? So there are two, 3 different types of getting the minimum and the maximum. So for example, if you have say n dimension array, right? So you have say certain number of elements, so like 10 elements in 3 different shapes, so 3 cross 3 cross 3, for example, right? So I can have either min or max of the entire array, purely possible, right? I can have the min or max element from the entire array, or I can have the min or max either on every row or every column also, right? So on particular axis I can have the min or max, right? So there are 2 ways of looking at this. First, I can have the min or max of the entire array, or I can have min or max on a particular axis, right? So like on min or max on a particular axis, that means a min or max on a row or a column wise, right? So that is also purely possible. So in this case, I have suppose what it takes for here, min and max, the board takes one of the argument called as access. If I do not specify any access, it will by default take from the entire array. Okay, so from the entire array, what is the min and the max, it'll give me that, right? But if we specify any access like 1 and 0, so which is like nothing but a 0 is rows and 1 is columns. So for each of my rows or for each of my columns, what is either the minimum or the maximum will get returned. Cool. So now just look at this. Now for example, so I have this array. So this is my array. So 3, 7, 5, 8, 4, 3 and 2, 4, 9. This is my array, right? So now the very first thing which I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find out the minimum of A based on the index 1, the axis 1. So axis 1 is nothing but my columns, right? So basically here, what I want is, I want the minimum between my each of my axis 1. So basically this is my 1. So this is my like 3 cross 7, 5, and then here, can you see this? Here I have for my for the axis 0, so I have like 2, 4, 3. So for each of the elements here, so 3, 7, 5 come in, then I have 8, 4, 3 come in, and then I have 2, 4, 9 come in. Likewise, I have, for the other case, I have 3, 8 and 2 come in, so I have 2 here. Then I have 7, 4 and 4 come in, so I have 4 here. Then I have 5, 3 and 9 come in, so I have 3 here. But if I have not given anything, for example in max, I'm specifying only A here, I'm not specifying any access. So in this case, it's gonna find out the max from the entire list of my elements. So 9 is the maximum, it give me 9. If I give A of min, for example in this case, if I give say print of np dot a min of A, so in this case I'm gonna get 2, right? So I'm gonna get 2 here. Likewise, again, I can have the max on a particular axis also, purely fine. So that's how my min and max is working. Cool. So I hope this point is pretty much clear to everyone. Now, the second function I have is percentile, right? So percentile is again an interesting function. Again, my statistical function available here. So the percentile is like if I have a data spread out from an incremental fashion, like starting from like from an ascending order. So the percentile is like the percentile value of my element, right? So for example here, so now look at this again. The interesting thing to note is if I do not specify any access, it will take the entire list of my elements and then it will give me that percentile value, whatever percentile I'm going to specify there. And or else if I give accesses like 1 or 0, it's going to look out for the percentile based on that particular axis, like a row or a column, axis 0 or axis 1, right? So for example, here you can see this, I have given percentile for A, and then I'm going to give it 50. So 50th percentile, I'm not specified any axis. It's going to give me the 50th percentile value on all of my elements. So 30, 40, 70, 80, 20, 10, 50, 90, 60. So the 50th percentile on all of my elements here. That's what it's going to give me at. Or in the second case, when I'm specifying the axis, like axis 1 or axis 0, so either on the axis 1 or the axis 0 is going to give me the percentile values at. So like we have 3 elements each because I have the shape is 3 cross 3, right? Cool. So that's how my min, max and the percentile works. So likewise, I have median and mean, exactly the same thing. So if I do not specify the axis, it'll take the median and mean of my entire elements of my array. Or if I specify any axis like 0 or 1, it's going to print out my median or the mean. Similar, same functionalities, median and mean कोई difference नहीं है, same चीज़ है, based on each of my axes. Cool. So that's how it works. And the last is my standard deviation. So I have my standard deviation or the variance. So similar thing है. So it does the internal calculation. So here definitely standard deviation आपको similar एक single element ही होगा, single output ही होगा इसका. So it takes by default the standard deviation of all of your elements. So that's what is going to give me the standard deviation, or the way it's basically the coding internal. If you go for the internal coding, so it has the coding of my the function, the formula of my standard deviation and the variance part of my coding, internal coding. So that's what it does. Cool. So that's part of my statistical functions. So I'll come to numpy.where after my copy functions. Okay. So the last set of functions available under my NumPy is my copy functions. Very, very interesting. So I think this is a very, I would say, very least importance given to these this set of functions, but trust me, it becomes very important when it comes to your out of memory issue or the heap memory issue. So many times we have seen that the garbage values are coming up and we are unnecessarily keep copying it and then wasting my memory allocations. So these becomes very important. So what exactly you want to how exactly you want to use that, right? Just a minute. Cool. So so as I said, there are three different types of copies. So the first is a no copy. So you're here technically you're not copying anything. Okay, so basically you're just creating a pointer of my copy, right? The second is my shallow copy. So here in this case, you're creating a temporary view of my copy. So and you're not allocating any space, you're not copying any data. So but you're just doing a shallow copy. So you're just copying the elements. Exactly. But in the deep copy, you're actually copying the content of your elements, right? So you're actually utilizing a memory space and then making sure that you have a replica available for the same variable or whatever elements you have, right? So yeah, definitely you can understand that if you're going to do a deep copy, it's going to use the memory location, right? And then if unnecessarily you're keeping a replica set of the similar variable in your code base, so it is using a memory unnecessarily, right? So it might give you the memory issues or the errors later on. Cool. So to have the no copies done, so I have my ID function. So the ID is using the no copy, right? So by default, so here you can see this. So I have my ID function. So here ID is nothing but it's getting a pointer. It is just like a shortcut of that variable. So if I change the original variable A, it will also change my the pointer variable B because it is referring to my original variable A, and I have not copied the content, right? I'm just using it as a reference pointer, right? So can you see this? If I'm going to print the ID of my B here, you can see this is my ID, and now I have changed the shape of my original variable, and now I'm still seeing the ID of my B. You can see this, the ID has not changed, right? You can see this. So earlier it has so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the replica also is the same thing. Now I have changed the shape. When I change the shape, the same shape got applied to my original also. The A also got changed. So because it's just a shortcut of my variable, right? So it is just referring to my variable. That's how the ID works. It's basically no copy. It's just a pointer function which is available in my C, right? So it's more of a pointer for my variable. Cool. So now I have another variable view. So it's more of a shallow copy, right? So here in this case, it's not a pointer. You are actually, creating two different IDs here. So now if we have this variable B here, which is created as a view for my original A now, okay. And now can you see this? I have the IDs A and B, and you can see this here. The IDs are different. So basically, it is not referring to that variable directly. Instead, it's a separate element, but it's a view element, right? It's not storing any, using any space. It's just more of a runtime element for me. Cool. So here, can you see this? If I've changed the shape of my B, this is my B, but when I'm looking at A has not changed. Okay, so here the thing is, if I have a B here, so and if I'm changing anything on the other variable, my original variable is not getting changed because here it's more of a view element, right? So for me, so this is again interesting thing. I have two different IDs created here for the original as well as my view element. But it's important to think is it's not whenever I'm changing the other element, the first element is not getting changed because it's not a pointer, it's more of a view element for me. Cool. The last set is my copy, is more of a deep copy. So here I am actually storing it as a different variable, and I can infer it, I can call it anytime. It's more of a global variable for me. I can call this variable anytime during the runtime of my code, right? I can call this variable anytime. So in this case, I've seen this. So I have the variable A here, so which is like this, and I'm creating a copy which is a B, right, using the copy function, right? Now I have changed the B of my function. So you can see this now. This is my A and this is my B. Now I've changed the B here and I've added the first element 10 got replaced with 100. And this B is fine, but when I'm seeing A has not changed because A is actually the copy. It's like another variable altogether, right? So it has no reference to B anymore. It has been, it is treated identically different now, right? So A will remain unchanged because it's a new variable and I can call it anytime in the runtime of my code. So that's how the copy functions work. So guys, that's basically your overall genre for all the available set of 7 classes. So I have 7 different major classes of my functions. So my attributes, we have covered attributes, shape, dimensions and all that. Then I have manipulations like flatten, stack up, concatenate and all that. Then I have my strings functions. Strings may we have seen char, concatenate, multiply and add and all that. Then we were talking about my arithmetic functions like add, multiply and all that. Then we talk about the statistical functions like mean, mid, min and all that. Then I have rounding functions like around, ceiling, floor. And at the last we talked about my, what are these? So it's more of my attributes. So it's more of my statistical functions like min, max and all that. So we already seen that. Right, so, and the last is the copy functions like my deep copy, no copy, and the shallow copy. Right, so my major 7 classes of functions, guys. Now on top of this, I have 3 again interesting attributes, the methods available under my NumPys. So I'll start from the last, which is my where. So I was talking about my conditional clause, right? So conditional clause where. So it's more of a I would say alternative to my if in NumPys, right? So in this case, I can pass a condition. And if that condition is true, I can use it as a filter, right? I can use it as a point of interest filter, or I can take up any action on top of that. So if that is a filter, I can take up any action and then I can do anything on top of that based on my basic requirement actually, right? So now I have this. So I have say X, suppose I have this statement here. So for example, this is my array. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I've passed a condition np.where x is greater than 3. That means I'm saying that whenever x is greater than 3, put it under y. So use this as a filter criteria and put it under y, right? So can you see this now? So whenever now I'm indicing it over the elements which is greater than 3 here. So now when I'm printing y, can you see this? So the y is nothing but 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So all the elements of my indexes where the elements are greater than 3 are getting filtered out, are getting, I mean, it's my point of interest, and that is where I'm seeing this like 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. So it's more of a if condition for me, it's more of a filter condition for me in terms of where the applications can be multiple for this, but it's more like a filter or an if condition for me in NumPy. A very interesting, very useful method available under my NumPy, more frequently used. So depending on a use case, you can actually use it whatever way you want. Cool. So now with this, I'm coming back to my another 2 interesting methods available. So the first is my indexing, right? So I'll talk about the indexing and then I'll talk about the broadcasting. So I think broadcasting we've already covered it, so that's not going to take much time. So indexing there are a lot of ways. So we talked about the ellipsis, we talked about the ranging, and we talked about the advanced slicing also, like multi-dimension indexing, right? So let's talk about all of them one by one. So basic slicing क्या होता है? कुछ नहीं है. Basic slicing आपका जो आप generally list में भी करते थे, so like in form of start, stop and step. So you're giving the starting index, you're giving the stop index, and then you're also giving the step, like what step you want to use at. So if your array is of say 1 dimension, so like for example, I have say np.arrange 10. So basically it's more of, let me print this. So for example, print A. So I have print, this is my first element, so like, and then in this case I can give a range. So list में भी क्या करते हैं? So like from the second index I want all, so like a range. So second index क्या 2 से start हो रहा है, so 2 से starting, and then I'm not specifying end, so that means all. So like from starting to end, or I can also give 2 till 6. I can have, so like starting from second index till the 6th index, and then I can also give a step here like 2. So I can have a step of 2, so 2 and 4. So that's what it's going to give me as. Cool. So basic है start, stop and step, जो आपका basic slicing आप करते थे, indexing करते थे on list, still applicable on arrays also. Okay, but this is for 1 dimension array. Okay, इसमें थोड़ा सा tricky हो जाता है for multi dimension. So now look at this. For example, I have now look at this. Yeah. So I have this multi-dimensional array now. So in this case अगर आप range डालते हो, so range का क्या मतलब हो जाता है? So here you can see this 1 2 3 3 4 5 and 4 5 6, right? So in this case अभी क्या हुआ, हमने यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो the first element is my row basically, right? So row, and the second element is basically my column. So like 1 3 4 2 4 5 and 3 5 6 likewise. This is one, right? So if I'm not specifying anything, so by default this will be considered as my rows, right? So this is my rows. So now here this will mean like now I want all the from the rows I want the second row index to be considered, and then all the columns. So like 1 2 3 got eliminated. The second index is 3 4 5 and then onwards all. So I want 4 5 6 also. The output will be 3 4 5 and 4 5 6. Cool. So that's a bit tricky in your multi-dimension array slicing. I'll be talking about in more detail in ellipsis. So another way of slicing out my array is ellipsis, right? So ellipsis basically क्या है? 3 dots, ठीक है? 3 dots में क्या होता है? 3 dots means all, right? So just by default आप समझ लो ellipsis में 3 dots means all. By default it's all, right? So now for example, suppose I have this element, this 1 2 3 3 4 5 and same array, right? And I'm gonna print a, and then I'm gonna say all, right? So I'm gonna say like 3 ellipses, 3 dots. So what it does, it's gonna print basically all. So that means that I want all the elements of my arrays. Plain simple logic. Okay? No, nothing fancy here. Now in this case, generally as I've said, so it's more of a rows and columns का structure, right? So when just for the technical understanding. So in this case, so आपके rows क्या हैं? Let me print here. So rows आपके क्या हैं यहाँ पे? 1 2 3 3 4 5 and 4 5 6, right? On the other hand, what are my columns? The columns are 1 3 and 4. Second column is 2 4 and 5. The third column is 3 5 and 6, right? इसमें किसी को कोई doubt नहीं है. So similarly, I can also specify the rows and columns in my slicing also, right? अभी मैं आपको ये दिखाता हूँ. For example, suppose I have this done. So the first, so इसमें भी similar जो आप list में जो data frame में भी करते थे आप slicing lock and ilock के through column rows and columns का structure similar यहाँ पे भी same ही है. The first before the column before the comma is my rows. The second element is my columns. Okay. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? When I'm giving ellipsis in my rows, I'm saying that I want all the rows to be considered. Okay. And now in this case, I'm saying 0. So that means that I only want the first column to be considered. So अभी all the rows क्या है? 1 2 3 है, 3 4 5 है, 4 5 6. इसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. But इसमें से मुझे सिर्फ 0th column चाहिए, मतलब first column चाहिए. So मतलब output में क्या होगा? 1 3 and 4. Now look at this. The output is 1 3 and 4. कोई डाउट है किसी को इसमें? ये इंपॉर्टेंट है बट थोड़ा सा इसमें ध्यान रखना है. Similarly, if I give 2 here, so I'll get the third column basically. So it's like second index or third column. So 3 5 and 6 I'll get here. Cool. इसमें आप ranging भी कर सकते हो. So now vice versa is also true. So if I give say 0 here and if I give say dot 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 here. So what I'm saying is I want the 0th column, the first column to be considered and all first row to be considered and all the columns. So basically output is 1 2 and 3 in this case. The output is 1 2 and 3. Cool. And आप इसमें ranging भी कर सकते हो. So I want to say 0 comma 1. So I want 0 से लेकर के first row तक चाहिए and all the columns. So in this case output is like नहीं ठीक है. अब हम इसमें नेक्स्ट में जाते हैं. हमारा इंटरेस्टिंग है. अब हम इसमें मल्टी लेवल इंडेक्सिंग करते हैं, स्पेसिफाइंग ईच एंड एवरी एलिमेंट. सो नाउ अभी हमने एलिप्सिस से करा. सो एलिप्सिस मतलब ऑल द एलिमेंट्स, राइट? सो नाउ आई डोंट वांट ऑल द एलिमेंट्स टू बी कंसिडर्ड. आई वांट सर्टेन स्पेसिफिक एलिमेंट्स टू बी कंसिडर्ड. फॉर एग्जांपल, सपोज इन दिस केस आई हैव द सेम अरेज 1 2 3 4 5 6, राइट? नाउ आई वांट सो सपोज सिमिलर रेंजिंग जो आप करते हो. सो रोज में आपने क्या बोला? 1 से लेकर के ऑल एंड आई वांट ओनली द सेकंड. सो 1 से लेकर ऑल क्या है? अभी यहाँ पे मेरे पास क्या क्या है? 1 मतलब 0 and 1. सो आई हैव 3 4 5 and 4 5 6. दिस इज माय रोज filtered out and I want the second column. So that means that the third column means 6 5 and the 6. The output is 5 and 6. Likewise, I can have say I can have 2 here, and then I can have say 0, right? So in this case, the output is the second row, matlab the third row, matlab second index of the third row, and the 0th index, matlab the first column. So here is like 4. So it's like my 4 is my output. So like on the dimension wise also purely possible. Cool. Multiple ways इसमें आप multiple चीज़ें try कर सकते हो, इसमें कोई issue नहीं है. ठीक है, ये तो हमारा हुआ सिंगल डिमेंशंस में. अब मल्टी डायमेंशन इंडेक्सिंग कैसी होती है वो थोड़ा ट्रिकी है. ठीक है, अब देखो फॉर एग्जांपल एज आई हैव सेड आई कैन एक्चुअली पिन पॉइंट द एग्जैक्ट माय एलिमेंट्स आई वांट, एग्जैक्ट indexes of my each of my elements, right? So now for example I have my this array. So again here so for example the array is, so let me print x, right? So the print is 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So this is my array. इसमें 2D array किसी को डाउट नहीं है. Then I am creating a y here. So y is nothing but this. Okay. So अभी इसका आउटपुट आता कैसे, इसमें पहले ये देखो. अभी हमने क्या करा, इसमें मुझे फिल्टर करना है x पे, मैंने इंटीजर्स का मतलब इंडेक्सेस डाला है इसमें. ठीक है, so I am specifying that exactly these indexes I want. So अब इसमें important thing to understand है कि मेरा जो indexes है, how it works. This is my rows का index and this is my columns का index. So because अब comma से rows and columns को separate करते हैं. Rows में I'm specifying multiple index, the list of indexes, right? So अब इसको list में बनाओ. So हमारा first क्या है, 2 है और 0. So here 2 and 0. So the second row का second index row का 0th column. And then I have 2 cross 1 here, and then I have 1 cross 1 here. So 2 cross 0 क्या है, second row में the 0th column is 5. So this is my 5 here. And then I have 2 1. That means that second row में the first element which is 6. I have written 6 here. Then I have the first row में first index. So my 3 cross 4 में I have the 4 here. So this is my second element. So 4. So the output is for this. The output is 5, 6, and 4. Cool. So I can specify for each element what index I want, and based on that I can filter it also. So that's purely for multi-dimension indexing. Cool. So you can always try this. Simple है. Boolean slicing next है. So condition based slicing है, similar to np.where. So in this case, instead of writing np.where action, I can actually pass a condition directly also. So it's more like suppose I want the elements where x is greater than 5. So as I said, I was explaining it earlier. So it's going to flatten out. So all the elements where the element is greater than 5, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 will get printed out here. So it's like more of Boolean slicing or a conditional slicing for me. Cool. The very last topic in NumPy is broadcasting. I think ये भी हमने explain कर ही लिया है. So अगर हमारे पास 2 different dimensions के arrays हैं, like a bigger dimension and a smaller dimension for my work purpose, and if I'm doing any manipulation on top of that, so what is going to do, the smaller dimension जो है वो आपके broadcast हो जाएगा on the higher dimension, right? So it's going to replicate itself to match up the dimension, to match up the shape of my higher dimension. Like for example, suppose I have this, right? So I have these two arrays. So like for example 0 0 0 10 10 10 20 20 20 30 30 30. So I have this 2-dimension array here, and the second is like 1 2 3, right? Now I'm adding up this. So what will happen, this 1 2 3 will get added to all of the individual rows. So 1 2 3 will get added first to 0 0 0, then this will get added to 10 10 10, then this will get added to 20 20 20, then again at last to 30 30 30. So now the output is 1 2 3, because 1 2 3 got added to 0 0 0, then likewise 11 12 13 21 22 23, then likewise for 30, right? So that's how it works. So the smaller dimension array is getting actually more of broadcasted to my higher dimension. Likewise, you can do any manipulation on top, like multiplication, divisions, or whatever it is. So if the dimensions are not similar, the smaller dimension will get added up or broadcasted to my higher dimension. Cool. So that's technically how it works. So with this, guys, I think we are pretty much done with NumPy. So this is what I had for NumPy, and trust me, this is what NumPy has in itself, right? So nothing very major beyond that. So there will be a few odd functions which might have missed out. So yeah, I mean, there could be a few more functions, like technically, but this is the major set of functions which are more frequently used and most prominently used, right? So again, If anybody has any questions on any, if you feel that I've missed out any function, do let me know that I can maybe cover it maybe in the next class, right? So, but I've tried to add all the major functions which are generally used in NumPy. But again, still there could be something which I might have missed out. Cool. So with this, guys, I'm pretty much done with NumPy. Thank you so much. I'm going to wait for a minute or two. So if anybody has any questions, I understand it was a pretty long session. So, but thank you so much for being patient. We have concluded NumPy today. So tomorrow onwards, we're going to start majorly on the data science. So we're going to start the natural language processing. So please feel free to connect with us all at the same time. Great, Momsi. Thank you so much. You're working so late. So interesting. Please carry on with your meeting, and thank you so much for being part of the chat. Cool, guys. With this, let's have your. I mean, maybe it's too late. So it depends on you. So whatever you are good at, so please do it. So let's connect tomorrow at the same time, 9 p.m. So we're gonna start the data science part of Python. So we're gonna cover. We're gonna start the new subject tomorrow. So that's gonna be the natural language processing, the NLP, something on text. So we're gonna cover a few interesting aspects on text, and yeah, let's see how it goes. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much for being patient, and have a pleasant night. So see you tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m. Let's catch up for data science part. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night. Bye bye.